Let's talk about sex. Very specifically, in this episode of the Fully Alive podcast with Jeff Capusta, we are talking about what some Christian surveys have said is the number one battle raging within the hearts and lives of men, and the number one weapon that culture is using against the psyche of men. And that is sexual temptation and a man's battle to stay pure in the face of it. This is going to be a fun episode. It is great to have you on, Pastor Jeff.
I'm glad that you're here. It's like I feel like I've got the expert in the...
Oh, no. I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
So in this episode, we will have many moments of us fumbling through words and laughing like
and
junior
if we're
hires,
blushing,
right?
It's probably just the lighting.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
This is great. Well, thanks for having me on. Thanks for hosting this episode and being a part of this and even using your platform to talk about something that just desperately needs to be talked more about. You have said this before, and I'm going to steal your words. We need to normalize the conversation that we're about to have.
Right. I think we got to embrace awkward, normalize these conversations. And quite honestly, there's nobody that I'd rather get into this awkward conversation with than you. This is really what we're doing today. For those of you that are joining, is we're inviting you into a deeper conversation that we have on a more consistent basis. We'll talk about what that looks like. But I also want to just say something to the ladies that are joining us. I know it may sound like, oh, they're just speaking to men today. Our hope is to give you a little bit more insight into the heart of a man, the mind of a man, and the struggle of a man. And so don't tune out just because you're a lady and we're two dudes talking about this. I think it's really going to give you some insight. And that's really our hope. Is not only is it like, oh, I got a glimpse, I understand a little more, but now I know how to better pray, or if you're a man, I know how to better defend, because there is a battle that's raging.
There is. It's interesting. My wife and I were talking about this very topic on a vacation recently, and we just kind of got into it. And I was saying to her some of the things we're going to jump into later about some systems we have to sort of keep our hearts pure and things out in the open. And she said, "Does that really help you?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And she said, "Why can you not talk to me about it?" And as we kind of went down that road.
Warning.
Beep, beep, beep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honey, do you want me to tell you every time that I have some sort of sexual or lustful thought?
Yeah. And the answer is no. And she said, I'm grateful that you have circles where there's trust and you can do this and be authentic. But then she made the statement, she said, what I'm realizing is that men need permission to have this conversation, and women need these conversations to have perspective about what men are feeling. And if we can just jump into it, there's a couple of quotes and then we'll make a statement here, but I want to see how these land with you. This is from the book, Every Man's Battle. And it says, sexual integrity is a lifelong battle. Sexual temptation is a constant challenge, but men can learn to master it by committing to a disciplined life.
Okay.
And there's another quote from another book that says, lust is the craving for salt of a man who is dying of thirst. And it's interesting that when you read those two, it speaks to this idea that it's a constant thing that's raging in the hearts of men. How do those quotes, how does this topic land with you?
The first thing that you said there, that sexual integrity is a lifelong battle. I hate that.
Yeah, me too.
But I would, let me just preface, as a 49-year-old guy, I would say that there's accuracy in that statement. I remember, I know all of us are exposed to sexual imagery at different ages. I think they say the average age, it keeps getting younger and younger and younger. I'll never forget being 10 years old at our community swimming pool. I went into the bathroom, and hidden behind a toilet was a Penthouse magazine. And let's just say that was the day my world changed. And those images didn't stay in that bathroom. They were, and the magazine stayed, but the images went with me. And what I'm willing to bet is the majority of men have got, they've got imagery that still exists in their mind, and they wish it wasn't there. They would get rid of it if they knew how to, but it will creep up and it will plague them. And I think, like, man, praise God that I grew up in a day and time that you had to go looking for pornography. We live in a culture now where it comes looking for you.
It's on your phone. It's in every screen.
So to say it's a lifelong battle,
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. You quoted Frederick Buchner. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Lust is the craving for salt of a man who's dying of thirst. Strong statement. But there is there's a desire
Yeah.
inside of a man.
It's built into men because when we're created, we are created to have sexual desire towards a woman, towards who is our spouse. But as you mentioned, when we start wiring our brains early on through things like pornography, honestly, even scrolling on Instagram these days, like we're exposed to things that, and I talked about this on platform a few weeks ago at our church, but my brain was like yours, rewired when I was really young, probably around 10 or 11. I was at a friend's house and he had a video and we watched a porn video. And that just started me on a path where it was a constant sort of in the background and sometimes in the foreground of my life, but it also shaped everything about my, like, it's still something in me where most of my humor, most of the ways that I naturally start to think, I can almost turn everything sexual. And it's because early on, my brain was just wired that way. So when you combine the natural desire that's created in us that is healthy for our spouse, but you pervert that to use no other word, all of a sudden it becomes something that as men, we're just constantly battling through and fighting against.
It is. And to go to the question that your wife asked about why don't you feel like you can talk to me about that? What was your answer?
I told her it was because I felt like, well, number one, I wanted to protect her. I don't want to hurt her. I know that there's some things that if I say it, it's going to land with her like she's doing something wrong. And she actually said that. She said, "Why is it that I'm not enough?" That and she said that's what most women are feeling. And honestly, the other reason was I'm ashamed of it. I mean, if I'm just being honest, I don't want to talk to her because when we got married, I'm here to protect her. So to bring that up is just it's shameful. I don't even know how to articulate it the right way. And because there's so many things that are firing through my mind, it would be a constant dialogue. And I don't want to do that to her.
Right.
And so those were a couple of the reasons why.
So you had said something. She had a phrase. You repeated it. You said it once already. Can you repeat it again? It was men need and women need.
She said men need permission.
Okay.
And because for most men, we don't have permission to talk about this, it's not normalized, even among other men, like trusted circles. And that women need perspective. Because for a woman, at least for her, she said what she's feeling is, am I not enough? And what she doesn't understand is just how rapid fire our brains are
Right.
and how lust grabs us. And so for her, it's that. What I articulated to her, and we've talked about this before too, is when we got married, I mean, we were both pretty young. I had that same temptation back then. I just thought getting married was going to solve it all. It
Right.
was like the silver bullet, right? And I'm going to have sex
Right.
4 times a
I
day.
won't be
Yeah.
tempted with
Right.
lustful images or
Yeah,
thoughts because I'm going to get the real thing.
exactly. And I remember the shame for me early on of thinking, "Oh my goodness, like this didn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there. Now what do I do with it?" And then you just repress it and repress it and repress it. You don't have healthy circles to talk about it in. And so now it's become abnormal
Yeah.
inside of you.
Right. I'll never forget the day that I was really honest with my wife that I felt like I was beginning to struggle with lust to a greater degree. It's one thing to see a beautiful woman. You see her, you look again and you're like, "Ah, I need to stop that." It's another when you're like, I'm looking for her kind of thing. And I remember feeling this way. And I had a conversation with two buddies that were really close to me. And then I share with my wife. And my wife was grateful that I shared that with her, but it also crushed her. And I think for what I would say to the ladies is your man doesn't want to crush you. He wants to protect you, that we're hardwired for that. We don't know how to express the fact that lustful thoughts are not because you're not enough. And I also don't want to say we're just dudes and it is what it is. Honestly, a lot of it is because we've awakened a sexual appetite, whether we went looking for it or it went looking for us. And because of that, until we figure out how to kill that thing, until we figure out how to beat it at its own game, we're going to continue to struggle with that. And I don't know. I mean, we'd all would admit, like, hey, men and women are different. Like, we know that. But when it comes to our thought life, I think we forget just how different we are. I preached on this topic a while back. We did a series called On the Rocks, and the Journal of Sex Research found that men thought about sex 19 times per day on average, compared to women who said they had nearly 10 sexual thoughts per day. So first thing, when I read this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm thinking thinking about sex 19 times a day is actually quite low.
Mhm.
I think
I agree with
dudes lied in that study.
that.
I would say women reporting nearly 10. I asked my wife, she's like, yeah, that sounds kind of high. So what I'm getting at is just know our thought lives are different. It'd be interesting if you could ask a guy, like, would you just carry around this little notebook and every time you have a sexual thought, just put a little tick mark and let's tally it up at the end of the day. I would be really curious to see the results because I just don't know that we can accurately communicate how differently we think about it.
Yeah. No, we think about it differently, and there's no 12-step program to be free of it. Like, there's no way that we can just say, okay, I've checked all these boxes and now it's over. I'm free. We have to walk in freedom and we have to fight for freedom.
Right.
And because of that, what we're talking about today, I think, is even more important, that we bring this talk into the light. We use that terminology a lot, that our secrets are what will kill us. We're only as sick as our secrets. So when we have those thoughts in secret, how can we rush them out into the light? Because most of the time, it's just bringing a secret into the light that makes it go away. You oftentimes, if you can get it before it becomes a sin, you're not having to repent of that thought.
Yeah.
You just have to have places where you can bring that out and be authentic and real about it. And then that will oftentimes, through accountability and God's grace, it'll help you calm the savage beast that is within. Like you mentioned, having a thought about a woman where you're starting to now, like, look for her, not just at her. I know for me, if I'm with some trusted friends and I just say that out loud, hey, I was at the gym.
Right.
I don't know why she's been in this class at CrossFit for 2 years with me, but for some reason that day, it just kind of was different. And the next class, I made sure I went to that
Right.
time, and I just say that out loud. Oftentimes for me, it kills it instantly.
Well, is James 5:16 that talks about, like, confessing your sin one to another. You know, we go to God for forgiveness. We go to our brothers. We go to people for healing. I mean, there's power when you actually speak those things. Because here's what I would say to you. You know, here we are saying that, hey, this is a lifelong battle. So what is a guy to do? Is he just to go, well, I guess I'm just going to fight this for the rest of my life? How do I find freedom? How do I find victory? And I think that we've stumbled into some of that. And it's not like we've kind of found some cheat code where we, no longer see a beautiful woman. Like, I don't walk around with blinders on, but we have found a way to make sure that it doesn't take root. You know, the Bible talks about how all other sin is outside your body. Sexual sin, it hits different.
Yeah. Well, in 1 Corinthians, Paul says, like, the same, just before you got to that passage, he says, flee from sexual immorality.
Right. Don't
Like,
flirt
run
with it.
from it. Yeah, run from it. But then you skate down a few verses later, I think it's in chapter 10, verse 13, where he says that you'll be tempted, but I've provided a way out. And oftentimes what we have found is that way out is not running alone
Right.
away from sexual temptation. And so the things you're just talking about, we've sort of stumbled into.
Mhm.
We've tried to find some discipline in our lives. And so let's just talk about what those are very practically.
Okay.
So first thing is we have a weekly-ish meeting. Like, we try to do it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be every Thursday at 3:45,
Yeah.
barring one of us being out of town.
Right. And in that meeting, we circle up. There's actually three of us that are
us.
in that meeting. And we ask very specific questions. In this meeting, what we don't do is say, how you doing?
Right.
It's not that. What is a question that we would ask?
Well, so we try to get very specific because we did acknowledge, like, as much as I don't want to lie to you, I know how to tell you just enough of the truth to skirt around what really needs to be said. So do not ask, how have you been? How are you doing? No, I want you to ask outright, have you looked at anything that would be offensive to God or dishonoring towards your spouse?
Yeah.
And, like, wait for an answer.
Sit in silence.
Right. Let them say, well, I spent some time the other day and I was on Instagram and I found myself dwelling on like, and we try to like we take off hats. Okay. I'm not the boss. You're not the employee. We're just brothers that care deeply about the condition of each other's soul. And we realize that there is power in confession. So we just take time and we talk and we start with that. We'll ask about anything that we've been looking at.
Yeah.
We'll then start talking about our marriages and our relationship with our spouse without getting too into the details. We'll talk about like intimacy with our spouse because I would say for a man, let me just speak for myself. All right, so this may just be me. The more fulfilled I am in the sexual union with my wife, the less I would say the less I even see what's out there. They kind of talk about don't go grocery shopping while you're hungry. And I think a man who is not sexually fulfilled in his wife will be more tempted. And so I want to know, like, again, how's your marriage? Are you guys connecting? And we don't need to get into the details of it, but we want to get really, really honest about that. So we go there.
And there's honesty in that part of the conversation about, I'm not pursuing my wife. And we'll confess that. Like, I'm not pursuing her. There's also times where you may say, I don't feel pursued.
Right.
And so we're very vulnerable about that. And what, for all the ladies who are listening to this, what you need to know is we all three fight for one another. But in those moments, we're also fighting for one another's spouse.
Right.
That'd probably be the best way I know how to say that is we're not just, this is not a like, we're trying to like be down on our wives because of something they're not doing.
Right. It's not a gripe session. It's not
No.
like, oh, well, if my wife would just whatever. And,
it's honoring. It's not venting. Venting's not profitable or biblical.
well,
We
some
don't
of
do
what's
that.
come out of it, you talked about pursuit, but there's been conversations about trying to get back to intentional
Yeah.
date nights, trying to make sure that like we're not just trying to pursue sexually,
Yeah.
that it is romance. And so those kind of conversations. And again, I go back to where does this happen for guys? And for ladies, I don't understand. I can't get into your mind, but if this is something that you find yourself wrestling through, how do you have those level of conversations too? As men, it's absolutely critical, but I would say for most guys, it's absent.
Yeah. And there would be times where we would hold one another accountable on, hey, listen, our last 10% to one another is, I don't think you're being very honorable to your wife. And so it's not just sexual, like it moves into the entire realm of marriage, which sex is a major part of. And but in that time, you mentioned something earlier that I think is important, is that you take off the pastor hat. So I work for you. And so there's a risk of even like, if I confess this, am I going to get paid next week? Like, what's
Hey, I
about to
appreciate your
happen?
honesty, but you're fired.
Yeah, right. So to your credit, you have, I would say, more than anyone fostered the trust in that circle. And I would say that to anybody who's in one of these circles, if you are in a position of authority, one of your responsibilities, I think, especially in spiritual authority, is foster trust, and you lead the way.
Right.
And you do that, like you're usually the first to go.
Well, this whole thing was birthed out of, last week we did an episode talking about brotherhood and how there's a lot of lonely men out there. And this whole idea, this accountability system that we're describing was birthed out of that. We had an evening where we encouraged teams of men to get really honest. And as leaders, we kind of are each other's team. So we huddled up and we got really honest. And we said, we need this to be more than like a yearly touch base. Let's create a weekly rhythm. And so this came out of that just because the need is that great.
Yeah. So good. So that's a meeting that happens. It's on our calendar.
Yes.
Again, if somebody's out of town, things kind of can move, and we'll come together and go, we haven't met in 3 weeks. But we do our best to keep it as regular as we can.
Right.
But there's also times that happen in between those meetings
Right.
where
what do you do if you're struggling on a Tuesday, but your group is not until a Thursday?
Right.
You're like, wow, man, I guess I'll talk to these guys on Thursday about how I screwed up. Sure wish I could have reached out on Tuesday.
Well, and we've even sort of said it that oftentimes where we should be our strongest, we feel our most vulnerable. So you and I are both pastors and we're both speakers. You do that much more than me. I feel most vulnerable oftentimes after I'll speak.
Right.
And you've had this huge spiritual high. It's the weirdest thing.
Highs and lows, man. You are most vulnerable at highs and lows. I like to think when you're throwing your hands up in the air to celebrate, that's when the devil knows you are most vulnerable.
Yes.
You know, the Bible talks about David at the time of year when kings go off to war, David stayed at home. Why'd he stay at home? Because he's won so many battles. He doesn't need to go. So he finds himself in a place that he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And so when you are in those high moments of life, celebratory moments of life, watch out. But when you're in those low moments of life, watch
Watch
out.
out. Yeah.
And I just those are the things that I think you got to really guard against.
It's real. And one of those we had talked about is for us, it's early in the morning.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, like after a devotion time or a quiet time. For
Well, and
some
can I
reason,
also just physiologically speaking, a man's testosterone is higher in the
yeah,
morning.
in the morning.
His sex drive is going to be higher in the morning.
So early in the morning, you're oftentimes alone. Sometimes, if you're like me this morning, I was up before anybody in my house, and you're having those feelings, those thoughts. Where do you go live time?
Yeah.
And so we created a text thread that is, again, it's the three of us and same guys that are meeting together on Thursday. And the text thread is just, we'll communicate other things in there, but it's really built for one purpose.
Yeah. Basically, hey, I need prayer right now.
Right now. And it's very quick. It's oftentimes without explanation.
Right.
And to expedite the process, because there's just sometimes where you are feeling something.
Well, and it started with trying to send a message like, hey, pray for me, guys.
Yeah.
And we realized
That's it,
some of
yeah.
us were not sending a message because it just feels you're
Feels-
in the moment and you're like, it's like I haven't sinned.
Yeah.
But it feels weird to go, hey, I think I'm dealing with lust. So we're like, listen, can we just cut to the chase and just like, I don't have to give an explanation. What if we just created an emoji that we just send, and when you see that emoji, we'll know praying for you right now.
Yeah. No explanation needed.
You don't have to explain to me exactly what scenario you're in
Right.
in order for me to pray against, lust, because really it's just speaking it that breaks it off. And so we created an emoji. It's become controversial. We're three dudes. We were like, what emoji? And I know right now I've said emoji a bunch, and some of y'all are like, I think I know the emoji. Did they use the emoji? Was it the peach emoji? Hope it wasn't the eggplant emoji. No, it's none of that.
It's the wood emoji.
It's the little stack of firewood.
Yeah.
It's the firewood emoji.
Yeah.
Because if we don't deal with it now, it's going to turn into a raging fire, right? That's why we chose
That's
it.
why. Not because we are having wood at that time,
Or Taylor Swift's song about wood.
Right.
Clearly, that's not the reason.
It's not the reason. So we'll send that emoji. And let's just
We
say
just
this.
lost it. We just lost.
We did. And we gained a few too. This all of a sudden became the most shareable.
People are like, y'all are a bunch of
episode.
children. Hey, maybe, but we're some children that are finding some victory over an area of vulnerability in our life. So
Yeah.
before, don't knock it till you try it, okay?
Well, and I think we would all agree, we would rather be misunderstood by some people.
Oh, for sure.
Because here's the end of the day, we're interim pastors. We're interim in whatever leadership we are. We're not interim parents, and we're not interim husbands.
And
So,
I would say to people that are like, I mean, really, guys, like maybe we're taking this a bit extreme. Can I just be really honest? In our line of work, if this area goes unguarded and we let down our guard and we let lust take root in our heart and we get exposed, we don't go to work tomorrow. Like everything pauses. I share this with our brotherhood guys. I have a cowboy hat, and inside my cowboy hat is a list of conversations that I have to have if I fail morally. Starts with my wife, goes through my kids, my parents, my in-laws, my high capacity leaders, staff, my church. Like, if you think we're making too big of a deal about this, and I don't want to have purity in my life because of my job.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, my livelihood, my family, like there are people that will lose trust in the church. Like, I'm just saying it's a really big deal. So we just want to take every possible extreme. I've tried software on my phone, and it's frustrating. I've tried, like, let's just have an accountability group and we'll get together. And all I'm saying is this works.
It works. And I think it works partially because it's built on relationship. It's built on trust, and our faith is built on a relationship that we have with Jesus. And I think when you build accountability like we have on that, it is stronger than a software. And I'm just not discounting any of that.
No,
That
and
that helps change lives, you know.
I would say do everything
Yeah.
that you can, but
Yeah. One
you
of the
I've learned a lot of the software stuff doesn't guard against your apps.
mm,
Most guys are not going to like Pornhub and looking for stuff. They're going to X, they're going to Facebook, they're going to Instagram, they're going to TikTok. And if you scroll far enough and know what to search, you'll find it and it'll find you.
oh yeah. Well, and sometimes it's just ads catch up with you because we've talked about this before, searching like testosterone replacement or things like that. All of a sudden the
Yeah,
ads that come
fitness.
back, yeah, any of that. I just don't need to see those
Right.
ads. And
Which
so-
is why we've done an entire episode on resetting your algorithm.
yeah.
And so sometimes that's what you need to do.
Right, right. So probably the final system for me that happens with I have an opportunity to honestly model what you've done for us, PJ, is sit down with a group of our pastoral leadership, and I call it a headline news meeting. And for me, it's kind of to what you were saying earlier that if we have a moral failure and there was something that came out in the news about it, who's going to be in the headline with us? And it's very specific to say, have you thought about anyone, looked at anything? Essentially the same question we ask. And it's facilitated some great conversations. And sometimes it's not even sexual. It's just the permission for a guy to go, I'm having a lot of financial pressure, and it's driven me to think about things that I would never think about before. And it's not necessarily sexual in nature, but it is sinful in nature. And again, we just care deeply about this. We feel like it's something that we're going to fight for because, and I wrote this down, I think I said this in a sermon a week or so ago, that sexual sin will entertain you today and enslave you tomorrow.
Completely.
And we want men to live free. And so I would encourage you, if there are any men out there who are listening to this, is find that trusted group. For you, it might mean that you have to have the courage to go first. You may have to be the one that sits down and facilitates the first conversation and takes that first step towards honesty. It will be awkward at first. There's no guarantee that it's really easy. There's a reason we say it's a fight for purity, is because you are fighting against everything that culture is trying to normalize.
Yes. Well, and I'll leave you with this thought, because I'm sure there's some people that are thinking like, you just grow up, guys, you know? And I'm sure some of you, you're probably right. We probably could, but we enjoy life.
Yeah.
But lest you think we're coming at this a little too strong, listen to the words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. He's talking about adultery. He says, you've heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. Basically, don't run off with somebody else's spouse. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So if you're like, well, is it really that big of a deal? Well, Jesus says it is. And then he gives you a prescription on how to cure this. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out, throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. He's literally talking about lust. He's saying if your eyes are causing you to stumble, gouge them out. Could you imagine? This makes me chuckle a little bit. If we applied this in reality, we'd look like a band of pirates, man. A bunch of eye patches and hooks for hands, and be like, lust got you too. Yeah, you know. So if Jesus is going to say, cut your hand off and pluck your eye out, which this is hyperbole, okay? For some, it's delete the app. It's reset your algorithm. It's get a band of brothers. It's get really honest. It's create a text thread. I think what he's saying is that you've got to be extreme. Because here's what I'll say. Since we have instituted this process, which we've been doing for a while now, I just want to say, for me, I felt a freedom. I have done a heavy, multiple resets on my algorithm. It's not enough to reset it. You need to replace it. And so I did an episode a while back about my dog. My algorithm is full of puppies now. And so if you're struggling with porn, look up puppies, okay? But you've got to retrain. If you're like, oh, this algorithm keeps showing me this trash. Well, It's an algorithm, all right? It's showing you what you're looking for, what you're talking about, what you're researching. So clean it up, replace it, but put these systems in place. I can tell you that it has, not that I don't notice things, but man, I have not been struggling like I had in the past. And so I know that if I can find the freedom that I found, and I know you have as well, and so has Matt, uh, man, this works.
It works and it makes our lives better. The other thing that I'll say on all three of our behalves is it makes the life of our wives better. And all three of them would say, we love that you guys do this.
Right.
My wife has said that. I love that. I wish that you had had brotherhood and you had all the things that come along with this so many years ago. And so if you are a spouse of a man who's watching this, encourage him.
Mhm.
Encourage him to have a band of brothers that is just he can be very honest, very vulnerable with. And then another exercise just that you mentioned on social media is deep dive as a couple, deep dive on some things together. Like my wife and I have just been back from New York City. So both of our algorithms are reset to New York City. And it just creates fun conversation. It like helps you as a couple dive into something together and also guard yourself at the same time.
Hey, I know we're wrapping, but I want to throw back to you one more time, for the ladies that are listening, whose husband has been or boyfriend has been struggling, and they say, "Hey, that episode really struck a chord with me." What would you say to that spouse who just found out that her husband's been battling lust and been wrestling with pornography? What's the next step?
So the next step for you, if you find yourself in that situation and you're the wife or the spouse, I would say for you, you need to be honest with him. You need to let him know that, hey, this hurt. I'm walking through pain right now. You need to understand that you are the guide walking through this. He needs to understand that and let him watch this and fast forward to this moment that, man, if you're walking through this and being honest with your spouse and you've been found out of looking at porn or looking at something online, your wife, she's the guide. For the next season, you're not in charge. She's in charge of your phone. She's in charge of your social media. In fact, I would say do without it. For me personally, I have no place to have secrets.
Right.
I've got about 10 people that have every password to every app that I have on my phone, email accounts, all that stuff. Because for my wife, she's the guide in this. If I'm the one that struggles with purity and lust and all that kind of stuff, somebody else has to be the guide. You need to put that in her hands. For the female, what I would say is give him a lot of clarity and give him some grace. Like when you feel like it's time to forgive him, articulate that. It's very freeing when you're walking through a season like that, when the person you love says, hey, I forgive you. Like I'm letting you off the hook, but we're putting some new protocols in your life. So listen, you can get through this. God will heal the wound. God will heal the marriage. God will heal the relationship, but it's going to be some work on the other side of it. Don't try to walk through that alone. It's okay to like circle the wagons a little bit, but you need to invite some trusted people. Don't air all your dirty laundry to your girlfriends. Find one or two women who've been through something, love Jesus, and are biblically grounded, and invite them to help lead you on this journey. Because if you're walking through it, don't let your feelings and emotions lead you. Let some biblically grounded ladies who've been there before, let them lead you, and you will get through this.
I like that. I like your spouse is the guide, your buddies are the guard, and I think you need that. You gotta. Hey, who are your guys? Who's your text thread? What's your emoji? That's great.
You got to know, articulate it all. That's where you need clarity between spouses. Is you need to know like what is it that is your guard, so to speak. That's why we talk about it a lot. We talk about it all the time. PJ, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for leading the way with this.
What a great awkward conversation.
I know.
Welcome to Fully Alive, where we embrace the awkward. Maybe we have more of these. I think it's helpful. It's been a big help in my life. I'm grateful for you, for Pastor Matt, for what we've got and our text thread.
Likewise. Let's make the things that culture try to make awkward as normal as we can.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being a part of this. We'll see you on the next episode.